Well, here we are. I don't know what to say. What can I say? What hasn't already been said about the disappointment that was and is the Ratchet & Clank reboot? Prettier mouths than mine have gnawed this game's jugular so thoroughly, nary a drop has gone untasted and pontificated about for 30 minutes plus. The Ratchet & Clank reboot is it. Like all of my criticisms of the series up to this point, this is the apotheosis. The sterilization, the loss of character, the LOL random are you laughing yet desperation, it's all here and it's all at its most tiresome. Despite posturing itself as a remake or reimagining, every aspect the 2016 game cannibalizes from the 2002 original has been watered down or misappropriated to the point of being literally the opposite.
I've died and gone to nerd heaven.
Nerd. I like him.
No longer a clever sci-fi yarn about two opposites needing to attract for the betterment of a universe blighted by obsessive consumerism, the reboot reintroduces Ratchet & Clank as two generally compatible nice guys, stopping a bad guy, cause bad guys are bad guys, with the story barely even about them when it's stuffed in on all sides by a glut of celebrity voices and useless characters, siphoning away whatever drama the incessant and terrible humor hasn't already suckled up. All of the grit, the sass, characterization, and complexity has been flattened as far as they can squish to fit a shallow, glittery facade, wrapped around as bare bones and underwhelming a hero narrative as they come. Strung along by gameplay that doesn't so much streamline as do the exact bare minimum, leaving behind naught but a product that is emphatically weaker than its source material in every way that isn't visual.
But you already knew that.
I am not the first, nor the last, but I'm possibly the prettiest fan of the original Ratchet & Clank to break out the old Premiere Pro and have a go at over-explaining how painfully this remake misses the point, really points plural, of the 2002 classic on which it claims to be based. Tearing this game apart has basically become a YouTube subculture in its own right. Where do you want to start? Ratchet & Clank automatically being pals? Quark's scuffed character arc? Pop culture over consumerist culture? Ratchet's freaking ugly armor set! How many times have you seen that nerd comparison alone? You know what? One more time just for luck.
I've died and gone to nerd heaven.
Nerd. I like him.
Never gets old.
So you know what? I'm not doing it. I can't. There have just been too many unfavorable comparisons between the original Ratchet & Clank and this reboot that if I go down that road, there's nothing I can meaningfully add to conversation. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do instead. This showed up on my nightstand earlier. I don't know what's in this. I don't know who put it there. I don't know what it is. But I'm gonna drink it. I'm gonna hope that it makes me forget everything about the Ratchet & Clank series up to this point, so we can talk about this reboot solely on its own merits, because trust me, there's enough to talk about just on those alone. I'm not gonna talk about the original game. I'm not gonna talk about the future sub-series. We are going into this as objectively as possible. Ratchet who? Do we understand each other? We good? Alright. See you on the other side. Wait. Spoilers. For everything. The game, everything. Just, you probably already guessed that. Okay. Cheers. Mm-hmm.
Whew. Not getting the deposit back? Oh, no, sir. Last time I paid $5 for... What? Is that a colorful animal jump game? I love jump games. Let's play it. Today, I'm going to talk about a game called Rondo and Robot. That's what it's called. Anyway, the story of Rondo and Robot begins with this little guy, Rondo. Rondo wants to be a big hero, specifically as part of some team of hero types, these Galactic Rangers, led by this here green guy. Rondo goes through their tryout obstacle course thing and all, but then they tell him, no hero for you. And then he goes home all sad. Oh. Meanwhile, a triptych of tricky bastards are building some sort of evil robot army for some typical up-to-no-goodery. When will they learn? Looking to destroy them some planets, they is. Randomly, the assembly line pops out a diminutive defect who we'll call Robot, for that's what he is, who isn't chill with the destruction agenda and makes his escape. He's shot down and crashes onto Rondo's planet, where he gets fixed up by Rondo and he tells him all about the impending no-goodery. Robot wants to take matters to the Galactic Rangers, and Rondo convinces Robot to let him chauffeur based on a lie that he's actually good friends with the Rangers. Chicanery! Oh! gross! But Robot buys it, so, off we go. Then, literally about 5 minutes later, they find the Rangers, and it's made abundantly clear that Rondo was lying about knowing them. But that doesn't really matter, since neither of them ever bring it up again. In fact, after this point, Rondo and Robot barely have a direct conversation together. The Rangers finally let Rondo join up, and I guess Robot just goes with him. I don't even know why they stick together, honestly. That's pretty much it between them. And that strikes me as odd. This is kinda odd, right? I mean, the game's clearly called Rondo and Robot, which might make you think that it might, be about them? But no, they're pretty much strangers, with all the explosive chemistry of an alive toad sitting on a dead toad.
We gotta get to Iridia.
Agreed.
In terms of the plot, Robot's basically out of the game as soon as he and Rondo find the Rangers, i.e. 5 minutes after he's introduced. He just keeps showing up, taking up screen space like he's gunning for a day wage. Holy crap, behind you, Rondo, he's coming, look out! Okay, tell a lie, they do have one conversation after Rondo runs home crying after making his first big boo-boo. One that wasn't even really his, but whatever. And Robot's all like, there, little baby boy. Whew, take it all back. There's no separating these two. Best friends for life. Why? Why call the game this? Why not just call it Rondo, or Robot, or even call it Green Guy? Green Guy's one of the first characters we're introduced to. He gets the last line of the script. He even has a sort of arc or something in which he's jealous of Rondo, but only kind of, and learns a lesson, but not really. He's got a bigger case for main character than either of these two wet towels. Look at that searing emotion. These two are feeling it. Such rich interiority to explore.
Oh my. This assembly line is the place of my creation. I am experiencing many conflicting feelings.
I don't like any of the characters. And I'll bet me saying that hurts this game's widow feelings, but it's true. And partly what makes me dislike them even more. So much of this game just reeks of desperation to be liked by everyone. No one's got any edge. Rondo's a boring little shit with the most pathetically average motivation possible. I want to be a hero. Isn't that just so friggin' precious? And that's all his character is. I want to be a good guy doing good things. I mean, get in line. And then in his career of constant success, one thing goes wrong and his heroic response is to go home and cry about it until Robot comes over all like, "It's okay, baby." And then he's back at it again within the minute. Completely bland, completely characterless, but you can't say anything bad about him, can't you? Everyone will like him because he's so nice, right? And then there's Green Guy, who just straight up betrays Rondo and the good guys, literally putting the fate of the galaxy in jeopardy because of his bruised ego, but it's okay because he's immediately sorry right afterwards because he's really a nice guy, you guys, really. See, all's forgiven.
Hey, you coming?
Somehow. The villains too, there's like 3 main bad guys and none of them feel like serious threats. Oh, but if they were threatening, people may not like them. People don't like serious grumble pusses, they like wacky, they like memes. Oh, look at this shifty britches, huh? Looks like we got ourselves a real sussy amogus on our hands, isn't that right, fellow gamers? Let's hand him that LFTW. Would you like to buy a plush toy? This leads to a particularly bizarre ludonarrative dissonance in that the game's cutscenes are all about how fluffy and wonderful and hopeful little Rondo is, and then the gameplay is all about him aggressively mowing down legions of thinking, breathing life forms with flamethrowers and rocket launchers and the exact opposite of things that are good for making friends. In fact, I think Rondo has a higher body count than the main bad guys. Like, significantly higher. Business bad guy destroys a planet, but the game craps out a line like, "Good thing all 14 billion people who live there left in time."
The Novalians were able to evacuate in time, but billions lost their homes.
The evacuation of Novalis was successful. No one was killed or injured.
So I don't actually think we see him kill anyone this entire game. Apparently he destroys more planets than the one, but we don't see it, and apparently the possibility is very real that everyone happened to be on vacation at the exact same time or something, so I don't know, who knows. And Stallone bad guy sure as hell ain't killing anyone.
Water!
I guess we watched Pickle Rick bad guy turn a guy into a sheep once. Does that count? Are we counting that? What does that make? One kill shared amongst 3 big bads? Meanwhile, Rondo's past his big old fuzzy ears and charred corpses before the 4th friggin' planet. But it's okay, cause we're the good guys. When we do it, it's adorable. It's wacky. Get back to blasting. Which I suppose is a good enough segue into talking about the gameplay as I'm gonna get. I guess, broadly speaking, Rondo and Robot is a third-person shooter with a jump button. You go through a level, a bunch of enemies pop up, you talk them out of staying for dessert by using a series of very loud plasma-based counter-arguments. I mentioned the jump button because jumping out of the way of incoming bullets is really the only evasive measure you can take, and sometimes the main path gets broken up a bit by making you do some hopping and a skipping and the sort, especially when you're playing as Robot. Overall, simple stuff, and yeah, it's pretty fun. Rondo controls like a dream, and the game really pushes it with how many enemies it pits you against, leading to plenty of pulse-pounding bouts of gunplay. You're gonna have to pay attention, but one of the biggest risks is simply overthinking things. Shoot the boom-booms at the man-mans! So it's a good middle ground, and nestles nicely in that tricky enough to demand attention, but simple enough to zone out sweet spot. By the end of the game, your arsenal positively balloons with loads of wild weapons for an almost overwhelming amount of options. As soon as you think you got one thing down, the game always skitters something new across your plate, so yeah, that's something. Though I don't like how many of the weapons seem to fall into the category of just throw it out and forget it. About the most complicated strategy you can pull off is by throwing out all the weapon types that automatically fire themselves, then mashing the fire button on some other weapon until you need to replace the automatic ones. While I wouldn't say the game gets unfun, it also doesn't take too long to settle into a well-trodden rut when the sole engagement is just jumping back and forth, mashing fire. I think a little bit more room for deeper synergy would have gone a long way. There's also a lean towards silliness with the weapons, which doesn't pay off all the time. I guess I just don't get why the shotgun has to make enemies all pixely, that kind of thing. But hey, I can't think of any other video game in which you can hypnotize enemies into dancing as a viable method of combat, so at least they got that nice little bit of mental real estate. Another thing I don't like is how weapons upgrade. It's easy enough. Use the weapon, and then the weapon gains experience. You get enough experience and the weapon levels up to a max level of 5, at which point it gains a silly new moniker and additional function. And I don't like this system because it means the primary incentive for using weapons isn't because they're cool, it's because you need to fill up its bar with numbers. You spend all this time with a weapon to unlock its exotic and transformative function, catching in on a bunch of extra stat upgrades for it, only to decide that you don't want to play with it anymore because you have a PP blaster you haven't filled up yet. Yeah, you can still use the maxed out weapons, but that won't get the rest of your kit leveled. There's incentivizing variety, and then there's making the way we use the tools we're given feel completely artificial. Ugh! I'm sorry, that was weird. Anyway. Now, while there are a lot of levels that essentially function as big hallways that just have you trundling along, shooting everything in the way, the game actually comes alive every now and then by throwing some forks into the path. Nothing too schmancy, but it's nice when it happens. The branches offer plenty of nicely curated obstacle courses, so to speak, which keep things interesting and make the places we visit feel that much more sprawling. One of my favorite planets is Gaspan? Whatever, the red one that opens up with a pretty typical linear path. But then you reach the end and then you get a jetpack, and now all of a sudden the entire map is this really explorable sandbox. It's a really cool idea, and I kinda wish more levels were like this, giving you reasons to mosey around, turning over the rocks. The game is gorgeous, and while I wouldn't claim that exploring and getting all up in said gorgeousness is in any way discouraged or goes unrewarded, there's a distinct lack of mystique. The line gets drawn super thick. Anything even partway off the required path gets a big optional flag on it, which is really off-putting to me. To know before even setting foot on a planet exactly what I'm in for and exactly how much of it apparently doesn't matter, it's strange. It's like the game trying to make sure you're not planning on spending any more time in a level than what's absolutely necessary. Stick to the itinerary, people! Everything from the level music on up is all go, go, go! Rush me, let's go! Even the quiet moments don't stay quiet for long, because there are no quiet moments in this game. Because it doesn't matter what you're doing, even if it's nothing at all, there's going to be someone talking.
She hates everything.
And talking. And talking. And talking. Talking! And for all this talking, you think the game would be better at it.
Are you just hungry? Because when this is over, I can go for some food. Like a cheeseburger or some space and stuff.
Is this a joke? Why is this guy talking to me right now?
You got a lot of raritanium. But come see me and let's do some upgrades.
Oh, this is an open channel? Oh, okay, that means I just didn't know that. I guess that's fine.
A tripad lock. In order to bypass it, the duo would have to quickly activate all 3 pressure pads.
Oh, now the ceiling's in on this? Come on! Also, spoilers, what the H? That and many other little insistences made contribute to the feeling that this game is some sort of helicopter parent. Constantly worried you're gonna get lost and stop playing it in frustration, or if you get a moment's pause, you'll use it to think about something other than it. So it's constantly jumping up and down in your face and pulling you by the arm to make sure your attention doesn't lapse. Case in point, every now and then the action gets interrupted by this puzzle minigame, and the game is so anxious you won't like it that you're flat out given the option to skip it. Now that's just pathetic, game. It was your idea to have this. Do you want me to do it or not? Yes, no, I don't know, do you love me yet? The kicker is, the gameplay is smooth and the environments, well, the ones that aren't big metal hallways, are quite lush. I could get into this if the game would just get off my friggin' back.
Of course, Ratchet knew he'd have to surface to breathe.
That and the insipidly clean story puts across this impression that the game has absolutely no intrinsic eye whatsoever. It's not about the game itself, it's about what you think of it. This game so much feels like a product. All this game cares about is being liked. Being liked by everyone and anyone. But that's impossible. It is literally impossible to make something that absolutely no one is going to dislike. Chasing that status only turns you into an empty pot full of nothing stew. We're a game about brutal running gun violence, starring a runaway mascot from a children's book about how you can do anything. We burp out 1,000 words per square second, but we're not saying anything. We're making jokes that are probably funny, right? Since people repeated them a lot 5 years ago. Do a barrel roll? It's really the context that kills it. Needless to say, the day gets saved, but the way there gets downright jumbled as troves of random nobody characters get shuffled into the folds, and the game starts hopping from villain to villain despite giving literally none of them the proper time of day. The bad guy, that ends up being the bad guy, the final boss, has only been visible on screen for about 2.5 minutes before the final boss fight actually starts. I timed it. And for the majority of those cutscenes, Rondo and Robot aren't even there seeing him, so what, they've seen him for about maybe 10 seconds, by my estimate? Oh, what a twisty twist. Turns out the baddest guy of all was this guy you barely noticed. Whoa! Plus, he's not even the one that just established a beef with Rondo. That's the one that gets sheeped. You don't even let Rondo settle his score? You have some chuckle nut we don't even know do it? What even is dramatic pacing? What excitement is there really in a hero story in which the hero basically gets a free ride just for being a cutie? Or a buddy story in which the two characters are chill from moment one and barely notice each other since? Or a redemption arc that starts and ends within the same minute? Everything about the story, by design, is about as deep and engaging as an empty kiddie pool. And when it's not being tiresome, it's being pandering, which makes the game feel just completely washed out. And that's not to say fun gameplay alone isn't worth anything, because it is, but still, there's something inherently meaningless about Rondo and Clank. It's not entirely unoriginal, but it pulls so many of its punches that it doesn't make much impact. And honestly, the gameplay could be better. It very much feels like a junk food game. Fun in the moment, but it won't leave you with anything. Gameplay's good, but themes, story, that's what makes it stick. That's what rolls around in your mind years later. And where that intersects with gameplay, that's how you get the real au jus, you know? You don't need to be profound, you just need to put in the work. And Ratchet and Robot just lacks the conviction to tell a story that carries any meaning unto itself. Wait, Rondo and... what was it called? Wait. I remember now. Nefarious is an adjective denoting actions or activities that's wicked or criminal. That's why the villain's named that. Wait, I remember the wrong thing. What were we talking about? Oh right, how the Ratchet & Clank reboot completely bastardizes the original title by sanding down its themes, charm, spirit, characters, complexity, and narrative until becoming as hollow and fake as the culture the series once took the piss out of, effectively rendering it as the subject of its own ridicule. That's right. Wait, is that right? What day is it? How did you get this number? Well, there you have it. The Ratchet & Clank reboot. Quite arguably one of the lowest points in the series' history. No more wit. No more grace, no further aspiration than silly sci-fi, and not even doing that particularly well. Barring a few very specific exceptions, the only times the reboot really comes alive are when it's borrowing from the 2002 game. And like I said way back in the PS2 video, what makes the original Ratchet & Clank so zesty is how it all comes together, how every piece informs the whole and vice versa. The reboot has no whole meaning. It is a game that fundamentally misunderstands its source material. It is an empty game. It is a toothless, generic, our product here of a game that's too busy insecurely chasing validation rather than earning it. It is, unequivocally, a disappointment and a smear on the series' good name. Unless... No, just, no unless, just, this is just... blech. And don't even get me started on the film. Shocker! A story stuffed with useless characters and weak manufactured drama made for a pretty poor showing in a medium in which that's all you got. Actually, believe it or not, the game ends up being the better way the story gets told, because at least it accidentally has some form of pacing. Take a mission in the game, in which you start with a cutscene explaining how we have to get the thing. Then you play the mission, and then at the end you have the cutscene of getting to the thing. The film just outright cuts out that middle part. We have to get the thing! And then like 30 seconds later, we found the thing! It's like a puppy about to piss itself because it can't get its third puppuccino. Shit, slow down! Half the cutscenes in the game are literally taken right out of the film too, hence this gentle warning message that pops up every time you cough too loudly. But for some reason, a lot of them are edited super abruptly in the game.
Greetings, Cadet.
We gotta move.
Yeah, there are no winners here. Like, okay. Is this game pure malevolence pressed onto a disc? The worst possible thing ever conceived in any playable format? No. Like, 100% no. Especially when you compare it to other PS4 era exclusives, it's actually pretty refreshing. If you have no pre-existing stock in Ratchet & Clank as a series, most of what I've groused about probably won't even register to you. You could do a lot worse than this. Who knows? Maybe this game has done for a whole new generation what the original Ratchet & Clank did for me. And if that's the case, fantastic. Really. Who am I to say what's right and wrong to like? To find a game that really resonates for you, it's a special thing. And if this is that game for you, then I'm happy you found it. Fact is, if this game had just been another bland entry in the Ratchet series, I'd probably be much kinder to it. But it wasn't that. It took this existing game, this wonderful, clever game, and stripped it of everything but its name, and then had the nerve to try and claim this vapid new guff was in any way equivalent to what we once had. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't at all have this old man yells at cloud attitude in me, bemoaning how these kids aren't experiencing the real Ratchet. As I made pretty clear from the PS2 video, the original Ratchet & Clank is a really special game to me. Over the years, seeing this series dissolve to a measly sliver of itself, literally into the butt of its own jokes, losing every bit of its original, remarkable identity to just aimlessly chase clout, it's frustrating to say the least. Time changes things, I understand. We can't expect a series to remain as it was 14 years after its conception. But as a creative type, I like to believe that as we go, we should be appreciating the road we've covered, understanding what's worked and what hasn't, and finding new ways to evolve and iterate that core meaning to create new experiences and push new boundaries. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. The reboot is just the cherry on top, or on the bottom, I guess, considering how low we've fallen. And it seems Insomniac has tacitly agreed that something went wrong, since Rift Apart brings us back to the old continuity, thank goodness. You might ask, then, why even talk about this game? This game so many have already talked about when it doesn't even matter. The series has moved on, shouldn't you? And to that, I say, I'm here because those who forget history are doomed to have it pressing up against their windows at the wee hours making ominous noises. Especially during the last couple of generations, gaming as an industry, but also Sony in particular, has shown this aversion to its past. Always pushing the big new thing, always so quick to just drop its failings and keep walking like it never happened. But we shouldn't forget. It's important to be able to look back and see what you've done before to understand what went right and what went wrong. You need to embrace your mistakes in order to learn from them, or you'll just end up making them all over again. It's like I said about the future games. You can't expect to grow if you cut away the roots. All that'll do is leave you nowhere. And that's been the point of these Ratchet videos all along, hasn't it? Mapping out how we got here, and one way or another, I'd say we've done just about that. All that's left, where are we now? And how screwed are we? All good questions we'll finally tackle in the next episode. And yes, I said screwed as a pun. Because of, bolts and wrenches and... Okay, bye, see you next time.